To all the EBT ladies, it's time to stop being lazy. Stop popping out all these babies. Welfare reform, so get ready. Your able body can work. Go to work, you big jerk. Government is not your daddy. Welfare reform, so get ready. SNAP, that spells snap. It's time the government put this to a stop. Welfare reform, it's the new norm. Fill out an application, further your education. Some need the help, this is true. The able-bodied ones work.
Welcome back, Deep Divers. We're going to be tackling a really important topic today. Welfare reform in Georgia. We've got some pretty interesting sources to dig into, including a report from the Georgia Public Policy Foundation, a conservative think tank. And then we've also got a document outlining proposed changes to SNAP from the Trump administration. And to round it all out, a comprehensive overview of Georgia's welfare programs from Welfare by State.
Sounds good.
So I guess our mission today is to really unpack these different perspectives on welfare in Georgia, look at those proposed reforms, and give our listeners a clear picture of the programs that are actually available.
Yeah, I think right off the bat, one of the most striking things is this kind of tension between Georgia's efforts to reduce the number of people on TNF and its overall poverty rate. So between 1996 and 2013, Georgia actually saw a 24.2% jump in its poverty rate, despite their efforts to shrink the TNF rolls.
That's a big increase.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. It makes you wonder if simply shrinking the TNF rolls is really enough to tackle poverty effectively.
That's a good question. And it actually kind of leads into one of our other sources, that the 2015 Heartland Institute Welfare Reform Report Card, which gave Georgia, get this, an F. An F.
Oh, wow.
And ranked them 44th nationally in terms of welfare reform effectiveness.
So they're really calling out Georgia's policies here, huh?
They are, particularly around TANF. They're saying those need some improvement.
That's pretty clear.
Yeah, so I guess to really understand these issues, we need to know what programs are available, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We're talking about things like S&T,
for food assistance,
Medicaid for healthcare, HUD,
housing,
LIHAPE for energy costs, and WIC for women, infants, and children.
Right, a whole array of programs that are lifelines for many Georgians.
Right, but how to best structure those programs to support those in need? That's really the question that's always being debated.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where I think this is where the Georgia Public Policy Foundation, they come in. They're big supporters of this market-oriented approach to welfare reform. And they really believe that that work is the key to escaping poverty.
Which, I mean, they've got the numbers to back that up, right?
Okay, yeah. What kind of statistics are they citing?
Well, they point out that only about 2.6% of full-time workers live in poverty. Compared to almost 24% of adults who aren't working.
That's a huge difference.
It is, yeah. And they've got some ideas about how to get more people working and out of poverty.
Okay, like what are some of their proposals?
So one thing they suggest is decreasing the lifetime limit on TNF benefits. They also propose stricter penalties for people who don't meet the work requirements. And they're really pushing for something called a cash diversion program.
Cash diversion.
Yeah. Have you heard of that?
I haven't, actually. What is that?
So imagine you're facing a financial emergency, right? And instead of applying for long-term TANF assistance, you get offered a lump sum. To address that immediate need, and in return, you agree not to receive TANF for a certain period of time. So it's kind of like a one-time boost to help get you back on your feet.
It's an interesting approach. So it's like empowering people to solve their own problems rather than becoming reliant on this long-term assistance. Has it been tried anywhere else?
Yeah, so the foundation points to states like Florida and Tennessee, and they claim these programs have had, promising results there.
Okay, interesting.
So it's about giving individuals that control that agency.
Right. I also noticed that that the foundation seems to be really concerned about making sure that taxpayer dollars are used wisely.
Yeah, they cite a study from the Foundation for Government Accountability that suggests that anywhere from 5% to 25% of welfare spending.
Wow, that's a big range.
It is, yeah.
Okay.
Could be, lost to fraud.
That's a significant amount, yeah.
Yeah, so they're calling for tougher fraud prevention measures, definitely.
Yeah, makes sense.
They're also pushing for asset tests for SNAP. So looking not just at your income, but also any assets you might have, like savings.
Oh, interesting.
That property.
So it's a much more comprehensive...
Yeah, a broader view of your financial situation.
It's interesting to think about how all these reforms, what kind of impact they would actually have.
Right. Well, the foundation argues that if Georgia actually implemented all of their recommendations, their ranking on that Heartland report card would jump from an F to an A.
Wow, that's a huge jump.
It is.
From the bottom to the top, essentially.
Yeah, they'd land in 9th place nationally. So pretty traumatic.
That is quite a turnaround.
It really highlights how different approaches to welfare can lead to very different outcomes.
Right, and it really shows how strongly the foundation emphasizes personal responsibility.
Yeah, absolutely.
And being accountable fiscally.
Yeah, fiscal responsibility is key for that.
Yeah, okay. So we've talked about Georgia's current situation, and now we've got a conservative perspective on how to fix it. Maybe we should kind of zoom out now and look at the national level.
Okay, yeah.
During the Trump administration.
Sounds good.
And look at those proposed changes to S2P.
Yeah, that's where the work requirement debate really gets interesting.
Yeah.
The Trump administration proposed tightening those requirements.
Okay.
Especially for able-bodied adults without dependents. They wanted to increase the age limit for work requirements from 49 to 65.
Wow, that's a big jump.
It is.
So anybody in that age range wanting to receive SNAP benefits would have to be working or participating in job training.
That's right.
Okay.
And it's not just about who has to work, but they also wanted to limit states' ability to waive those work requirements.
Okay.
So currently, states can make exceptions for areas with high unemployment, but the Trump administration wanted to restrict that flexibility.
I see. So that could make it significantly harder for some people to get food assistance?
Yeah, potentially. And there's another piece to this too.
Okay.
They also proposed limiting the automatic adjustments to the Thrifty Food Plan.
Oh, okay, yeah. So the Thrifty Food Plan, that's the formula they use to calculate SNP benefits.
That's right. So what would happen if they limited those adjustments?
Yeah.
Well, it means SNP benefits might not keep up with inflation.
Oh, okay.
The rising cost of food.
Yeah.
Imagine your benefits stay the same, but groceries keep getting more and more expensive. You're essentially losing buying power.
Right. You can buy less and less.
Exactly. And that can make it really hard to afford those basics.
I bet these proposed changes were pretty controversial.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, people had a lot of opinions on both sides, I imagine.
Definitely. Supporters of the changes argued that they would lead to significant cost savings.
Yeah.
They estimated like $230 billion over 10 years.
Wow.
And they believed that encouraging work and self-sufficiency would ultimately benefit everyone, individuals and the economy.
But I'm sure there were a lot of concerns as well.
Oh, yeah. Critics worried that tightening those work requirements and reducing the benefits would actually push more people into poverty.
Yeah.
Increase food insecurity. They argued that a lot of people who rely on SNAP face real barriers to employment, like lack of transportation.
Right, childcare, all those sorts of things.
It's exactly. Yeah. Childcare, job training. So, forcing them to work without addressing those underlying issues could actually make things worse.
Right. So I guess the Trump administration was trying to walk that line between promoting self-sufficiency, but also recognizing that there are these real challenges that people face.
Exactly. It's a tough balance.
Yeah.
They did offer some mitigating measures like expanding job training programs, strengthening childcare support.
Okay, so trying to meet those concerns in some ways.
Right, but the overall impact remained a point of debate, definitely.
Okay, so we've seen a range of perspectives now from the Georgia Public Policy Foundation with their focus on individual responsibility, and then the Trump administration with its focus on work requirements.
Right.
It all kind of begs the question, what is the actual goal of welfare programs? Are they meant to be a temporary safety net, or do they risk trapping people in a cycle of dependency?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah.
And it's often framed in these very, very black and white terms.
Yeah.
When the reality is much more complicated than that.
Yeah. There's a lot of nuance there, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of gray areas.
Exactly. So, I mean, our goal here isn't to give easy answers, because there aren't any, right?
Right.
We're trying to give our listeners the information they need to form their own opinions on this really complex issue.
I think that's key, is helping people understand just how complicated it is,
Yeah, absolutely. So we've laid out these different perspectives. We've looked at some of the reforms that have been proposed.
Right.
Maybe now we should shift gears and actually dive into the specifics of each of the programs that are available in Georgia.
I think that's a great idea. Let's get into the nitty-gritty.
Yeah, let's do it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so welcome back to our deep dive on welfare here in Georgia. We've covered a lot of ground already, from Georgia's not so stellar ranking on that welfare reform report card to, the conservative push for reform from the Georgia Public Policy Foundation, and even the Trump administration's proposed changes to SNT. Now I think it's time to really get into the weeds, so to speak, and look at the actual programs available.
Yeah, let's break it down.
To Georgians. And our source from Welfare by State gives us a really good overview here.
It's important to remember that these programs, they're not just abstract concepts. They represent real help for people facing real challenges.
Absolutely. I mean, we're talking about, real people trying to make ends meet, put food on the table. So let's start with one that I think almost everyone's heard of, SNMIP, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, better known as, food stamps. It's such a lifeline for so many families out there.
And what's interesting about SMP is that it's not just about, handing out bags of groceries. It's really about giving people the ability to choose what they need. So, eligible households, they get an electronic debit card, kind of like the debit card you or I might use.
Right.
And they can use that to buy food at participating stores, farmers markets.
So it's about dignity, it's about choice.
Exactly.
It's not just, handouts.
Exactly. It allows people to, make decisions that fit their own needs and preferences. Of course, there are eligibility requirements, things like income, citizenship status.
Right.
But the overall goal is to make sure people have that access to nutrition.
Okay, so imagine you're, a single parent, you're working part-time, but it's just not enough to cover everything. You've got childcare costs, rent, all those bills piling up.
Right.
That's where a program like TNF, Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, might come in.
Yeah, TNF provides that monthly cash benefit to help families cover those essential living expenses. But here in Georgia, there are some specific requirements you need to meet to qualify.
Okay, so walk me through those. What does it take to actually be eligible for TNF in Georgia?
Well, first and foremost, you have to be caring for at least one minor child or a child who's 19 and attending school full-time. And then there's a work requirement as well. So recipients, they have to participate in a job training program for at least 30 hours per week.
Okay, so that's pretty demanding, especially if you're, juggling childcare or other responsibilities on top of that.
It is. And it's important to note that there's also a lifetime limit of 48 months or 4 years that you can receive those TNF benefits. So as the name suggests, it really is meant to be that temporary assistance, a bridge to help people gain some skills, get back on their feet financially.
Okay, so we've talked about food, basic living expenses. Now let's talk about something that's absolutely essential, but often incredibly expensive. Healthcare.
Right, and that's where Medicaid comes in. It's a federally funded program that provides access to a wide range of medical services for those who qualify. We're talking, doctor's visits, hospital stays, dental care, prescription drugs, the whole 9 yards.
It's really a safety net for folks who wouldn't be able to afford these services otherwise.
Absolutely. And I mean, healthcare costs, they can be a major burden, for low-income families.
Oh, for sure.
So Medicaid really helps alleviate that burden, ensures that people can get that medical attention they need without, going bankrupt.
Yeah. And speaking of burdens, let's not forget about the challenge of finding, safe and affordable housing. I mean, that is a huge issue, not just in Georgia, but across the country.
It is, and that's where HUD, the Department of Housing and Urban Development, really plays a crucial role. They administer a variety of programs that are designed to make housing more affordable.
So what kind of programs are we talking about here? Give me some examples.
Well, for example, there's rental assistance, which can help families pay a portion of their rent.
Okay.
They also have programs to help people avoid foreclosure if they're struggling to make their mortgage payments. Mm-hmm. And they even offer weatherization services, which can help make homes more energy efficient.
Oh, wow.
And save people money on their utility bills.
That's great.
And of course, there's the well-known Section 8 program,
right,
which can provide people with government-owned housing or help them pay for private rentals.
It's a big system, but it sounds like it really does make a difference in a lot of people's lives.
It does. It really helps people keep a roof over their heads.
Okay, so now imagine it's the middle of summer in Georgia.
Uh-huh.
It's sweltering hot, and you're sitting in your apartment just sweating because you can't afford to run the air conditioner.
Oh, I've been there.
Or maybe it's the dead of winter and your heater's broken, but you just don't have the money to fix it.
Yeah, it's a tough situation.
That's where LIHEAP comes in.
LIHEAP, that low-income home energy assistance program.
It's all about helping people keep their homes comfortable and safe, no matter what the season is.
Right. It provides that financial assistance to help cover those energy bills. Mm-hmm. And in some cases, it can even provide help with those emergency situations, like if a furnace breaks down or there's a power outage. I mean, imagine the peace of mind that can bring to a family with, young children or elderly members who are more vulnerable to those extreme temperatures.
Yeah, it's about more than just comfort. It's about, basic safety and well-being.
And finally, we have a program that's near and dear to my heart, WIC, the Special Supplemental Nutrition Program for Women, Infants, and Children. It's all about giving those little ones the best possible start in life.
WIC, yeah, they do great work. They provide, access to healthy foods, nutrition education.
Right, and even breastfeeding support for new moms.
It's a powerful program because it focuses on those earliest stages of life when good nutrition is just so important.
It is.
For healthy development.
Yeah.
And it's not just about providing food, it's about empowering families to make those healthy choices.
Exactly.
So there we have it. We've got SNAP-P, TANF, Medicaid, HUD, LIHEAP, WIC.
It's a lot to keep track of.
It is a lot, but they all share this common purpose, right?
Yeah.
They're there to support individuals and families who are, facing all kinds of challenges.
Yeah. And it's important to remember that these programs, they're often interconnected.
Right.
Someone might be receiving SNAP benefits to help put food on the table while also relying on Medicaid for health care and getting assistance with their housing costs through HUD. These programs, they can work together.
So it's about creating a kind of a comprehensive support system.
Exactly. It's not a piecemeal approach.
Right. So having explored, all these programs in detail, I think it's time to circle back to that big question that we always, seem to be wrestling with when it comes to welfare. Are these programs, are they helping people become self-sufficient, or are they creating this cycle of dependency?
It's a question that's often framed, into very simplistic terms, with folks picking sides and really digging in their heels.
Right. But the reality is way more complicated than that, isn't it?
It is. There are valid arguments, on both sides of that debate.
Yeah.
And it's easy to get caught up in those generalizations, those stereotypes.
Yeah. And I think the goal here isn't to tell anyone what to think. We're just trying to give our listeners, the information and the different perspectives so they can form their own opinions.
Exactly. So as we move into this final part of our deep dive, I want you to really think about what resonates with you, what concerns you might have, what questions are still swirling around in your mind.
Yeah. What are you taking away from this conversation? All right. So welcome back to the deep dive. We've been on this journey exploring the world of welfare in Georgia. We've looked at the state's track record, we've dug into some proposed reforms, and we've really gotten to know these programs up close and personal. But as we wrap up, there's something that's been on my mind. It's something that wasn't really directly addressed in any of our sources, but it just keeps coming back to me.
I'm curious, what is it?
Well, we've talked a lot about individual responsibility, the importance of work. And we spent time breaking down these programs, how they work, who they serve, how they're funded. But I feel like we've only scratched the surface of a much bigger issue here.
I think I see what you're getting at. We've focused on treating the symptoms, but what about the underlying causes?
Exactly. We've talked about how to treat the illness, but what about preventing it in the first place? Like, what about all the things that lead to poverty in the first place?
You're hitting on a really important point. I mean, we can tweak programs, we can change who's eligible all day long, but if we don't actually address those root causes of poverty, it's like we're just putting a Band-Aid on a much deeper wound.
Right. Imagine a single mom working 2 minimum wage jobs, struggling to afford childcare, struggling to pay rent. Forget about putting healthy food on the table. Or think about somebody who's been laid off from, a factory job, and now they're trying to retrain for something new, but they don't have access to good education, or they can't afford transportation.
Yeah. These are the kinds of things that can trap people in that cycle of poverty. It doesn't matter how hard they work, how much they want to succeed.
It's like the system is working against them in some ways.
And it really highlights that poverty it's not just a personal failing.
Right.
It's often the result of these systemic barriers, these inequalities that just make it so hard for people to get ahead.
So what can we do if we really want to make a difference? Where do we even start?
It's tough. It's a really complex issue. It requires us to really look at things from all sides. I think investing in early childhood education, that's huge.
Yeah.
Making sure all kids have a solid foundation, that's got to be part of it.
Right. Giving everyone a fair shot.
Exactly. And making sure people have access to affordable housing, reliable transportation, and job training programs that actually teach people the skills they need for today's jobs.
And we can't forget about wages, right?
Absolutely.
If you're working full time but you still can't make ends meet, something is not right.
Exactly. We need to create a system that actually lifts people up, not one that punishes them for things that are often beyond their control.
This whole deep dive, it's really been eye-opening for me. It's not just about, the nuts and bolts of these welfare programs. It's about the people, the stories behind those programs and all the things that contribute to those stories.
And I think it's also about being willing to have these tough conversations. Even when they're uncomfortable, even when they get political, we've got to move past the sound bites and the stereotypes and really try to understand how complicated these issues are.
So as we wrap up, I just want to leave everyone with this thought. We've covered a lot of ground here. We've looked at the arguments from different sides. We've dug into the data. Now it's really up to each of you listening to decide where you stand on this.
What resonates with you? What are you still wondering about? Are there any actions you feel inspired to take? Those are the questions we hope you'll keep thinking about long after this deep dive is over.
Because creating a better society, a fairer society, it takes all of us being informed, being engaged, and being willing to, dive deep into these really crucial issues. Thanks for joining us on this journey.
To all the EBT ladies, it's time to stop being lazy. Stop popping out all these babies. Welfare reform, so get ready. Your able body can work. Go to work, you big jerk. Government is not your daddy. Welfare reform, so get ready. SNAP, that spell snap. It's time the government put this to a stop.